Hi, you're on the road with Larry, and this morning I'm here with Rick Turner for Renaissance Guitars. How are you, Rick?
I'm just fine, Larry. How are you doing?
Well, Rick, how did you get started building guitars?
There was guitar music in my home as a kid constantly. My dad loved Segovia. He loved jazz. Heard a lot of Chico Hamilton Quintet with Gabor Szabo playing guitar, flamenco, sabicas, and Manitas de Plata. And so guitar was just kind of a part of the home environment. My dad was an artist, my mom was a writer. And it was just always there. I got turned on to Leadbelly probably when I was 8 or 9 years old. Became a Kingston Trio fan in the late 50s and early 60s. And went off to boarding school in Rhode Island. Played guitar, had a Stella 12-string, not one of the really cool ones, but one of the Harmony Stellas. Found my first Martin in a schoolmate's closet. Turned out to have been his mother's guitar, and I purchased it from her, and had that. I guess I got that in 1961. Went off to Boston University, fall of 1962, and immediately started majoring in cutting classes and going to coffee houses. And then in '63, I apprenticed as a guitar repairman at the String Instrument Workshop in downtown Boston, right around the corner from what was then the E.U. Wurlitzer, which was the Martin dealer, and pretty close to what is now called the Combat Zone in Boston. A pretty rough neighborhood, but it was great. And so I started learning to repair guitars, and by '64 I had gotten into it deep enough so that a couple of friends of mine and I, Michael Caine and Lowell Levenger and I, opened up a small music store on Martha's Vineyard Island in the summer of '64. We were in the back of a coffee house, had our own storefront, and it was just great because the people playing at the coffee house were Clarence and Roland White and the Kentucky Colonels. I don't know whether Doc Watson played there that summer. Ian and Sylvia played, Queskin Jug Band, Tom Rush, a lot of the well-known names of the Boston-Cambridge folk scene. And we were sort of the young kids just coming into that scene. Of course, young kids, that meant we were 3 or 4 years younger than the established artists. But we were pretty quickly accepted into the scene. Then in 1965, I got the guitar playing gig with the Canadians, Ian and Sylvia, and went on the road playing guitar with them, and recorded an album with them. Our bass player for much of that time period was Felix Pappalardi, who went on to produce Cream, Youngbloods, and then be in Mountain. And Felix and I were roommates on the road. Had a great time. '66, I moved to New York City and started up a rock and roll band with an old friend of mine, Tom Danaher, and the bass player was Skip Boone, who was the brother of the bass player in the Lovin' Spoonful, Steve Boone, and then a young drummer who we snatched out of the High School of Music and Art, Darius Davenport, who I think we actually got him to drop out of high school and join the band when he was 16. We were bad, so we recorded an album for RCA, and during the process, I kept repairing guitars. Did a little work for Dan Armstrong, who had a shop in Greenwich Village. Put together my own guitar out of a smashed-up Gibson SG Les Paul, where I took the neck. Somebody had smashed the body to smithereens. So I had the neck and the pickups, and I made a small guitar body for it. Strangely similar to this without all the elaborate work, and also very similar to what became my Model 1 guitar that's associated with Lindsey Buckingham. The band broke up. We were kind of like a Spinal Tap scene where we got rave reviews in Crawdaddy and Rolling Stone after the band had broken up. And the album went lead. And I moved to the West Coast with my wife and about to be young son. And I wound up doing some studio work with Jerry Corbett, who was just leaving the Youngbloods at that point. For instance, we did Don McLean's first album. Okay, Andre. And but I, at that point, decided that I wanted to start building electric guitars pretty seriously. And so one of the first ones that I built was this. This is a 1969, what we call the pretzel guitar. And it's actually owned by my son, Ethan, who was 1 year old when I made the guitar. And this guitar is going to wind up going to the Museum of Art and Design in New York next year for an exhibit featuring American crafts from 1945 to 1979. 79? 1970. 45 to 1970. So that's kind of how I got going in it. And then by 1970, I wound up meeting up with the folks in the Grateful Dead and the technical team behind them, which became the company Alembic. And we built the very first Alembic bass that I built was for Jack Cassidy at the Jefferson Airplane. We built for Phil Lesh of the Dead, John Paul Jones of Led Zepp, John Entwistle, Stanley Clark, various people in Santana, David Crosby, Jermaine Jackson. The list goes on and on and on. Pretty. I don't even remember all of who we built this with.
Well, it sounds like you've got a long history with the American music scene.
Yes, I do.
Well, great. You're on the road with Larry and Rick Turner.